So this is week 8 of MGT 6154. And up to week 8, up to this point, we've been mostly focused on defining, planning, and structuring and approving project work. This week, we're going to shift into execution. And the idea is that performing project work is not simply completing tasks, but also requires leadership, team management, communication, conflict resolution, quality assurance, and the disciplined use of the project plan. The artifacts for this week help us describe how we'll actually lead and support the project once it's underway. So we're going to focus on leadership, communication, quality, and team practices needed to perform project work effectively. And we're going to focus on what it means to perform project work after the plan's been approved. And we'll begin by looking at the shift from planning into execution and why execution involves more than just completing tasks. And from there, we'll discuss leadership and team management responsibilities that help project work move forward. And we'll connect the interpersonal skills to risk control, examine conflict management as a normal part of execution, and look at quality assurance as a way to support both the deliverable quality and process quality. And we'll also discuss information distribution and why communication updates become practical execution artifacts themselves. And then finally, we'll connect all these directly to the week 8 course deliverables, project deliverables. The approved project plan becomes meaningful only when it guides coordinated execution. But last week, the focus was on finalizing the project plan and approval. And that's an important milestone because it's established the foundation for how the project should be managed. And this week, we shift from planning into execution, where the approved plan now becomes the guide for actual project work. The project manager and the team must coordinate activities, apply leadership skills, communicate with stakeholders, manage team dynamics, address conflict, assure quality, and keep work aligned with the approved project direction. The key point is that a project plan is not valuable just because it exists. It becomes valuable when it's used to guide decisions, organize people, direct work, and support performance. And project execution is where the project manager begins turning the plan into actual progress. And so for the course project, this means that we're now developing artifacts that explain how project work will be performed and supported during execution, since we're not really going to be able to execute the project itself in our simulation. And these include the interpersonal skills, conflict management, quality assurance, and information distribution. And so now that we've made this shift from approved planning to execution, we can clarify what it actually means to perform the project work. Performing project work means coordinating people, task, information, and quality to produce project work. Performing project work is often described as doing the work or working the plan, all those sort of terms. But in the project management practice, it's broader than simply completing tasks. During execution, the project manager and the team are responsible for turning the approved plan into coordinated action and value for stakeholders. And this includes assigning and directing work, supporting the project team, communicating with stakeholders, managing information, addressing conflict, and applying quality assurance practices. The project manager also has to keep the work aligned with the project approved scope, schedule, budget, risk approach, and communications expectations. So the course assignment this week is not asking you to prove that the project is complete. It's asking you to describe what you would manage in the execution environment. That includes what interpersonal skills you will rely on, how you'll manage conflict, how you will assure quality, and how you will distribute information during project work. And the idea is that project execution is integrated management activity, that people, task, information, and quality all have to be coordinated for the project work to produce meaningful results. So now that we've defined project work more broadly, the next step is to take a look at why execution involves more than task completion. During execution, project managers constantly judge how work decisions affect quality, risk, stakeholders, and the approved plan. So now that we've defined project work as coordination of people, task, information, and quality, we need to add in another layer, and that execution also requires judgment, integration judgment. So during execution, project managers make many or a lot of small decisions. They may need to adjust work assignments, respond to team conflict, clarify stakeholder expectations, address quality concern, or decide how to communicate a project issue. And each decision may appear local, but it can affect other parts of the project as well. For example, pushing a task forward too quickly may protect the schedule, but create quality problems. Delaying a task to correct a quality issue may affect stakeholder expectations or risk exposure. Reassigning work may solve a resource problem, but create communication or team concerns. The project manager's role is to recognize these connections and make decisions that keep execution aligned with the approved plan and the project's intended results. And that's why execution is not just an activity completion exercise, it's active integration. And because these execution decisions depend heavily on human performance and team behavior, we can turn to the leadership and the role of the project manager. We can examine that. Project leaders create the condition for the team to perform work effectively. Project execution depends heavily on leadership because project work is performed by people, not by plans. A well-developed project plan provides direction, but the project manager helps create the conditions that allow the team to actually perform the work. And this includes clarifying priorities, communicating expectations, removing barriers, supporting team members, encouraging collaboration, and keeping the team focused on project outcomes. Leadership is also important when the team encounters uncertainty, conflict, competing priorities, or performance concerns. For the course project, you can think about leadership as a practical execution capability. The interpersonal skills assessment is not just a general statement about being a good communicator or team player. It should explain what leadership and interpersonal skills will be needed to support your project during execution. For example, a project manager may need active listening to understand stakeholder concerns, emotional intelligence to manage team tension, influence to gain cooperation, facilitation to support decisions, and clear communication to reduce confusion. All these skills help control risk because they improve coordination, reduce misunderstanding, and support timely action. And the main point here is that leadership is not separate from project work, that leadership is one of the ways project gets performed effectively. And so with that leadership foundation in mind, we can look more directly at these interpersonal skills the project managers use to control risk during execution. Interpersonal skills help project managers reduce execution risk by improving communication, trust, influence, and timely problem solving. As we move from leadership more broadly into interpersonal skills, the key point is that these skills are not soft in the sense of being optional. They have a direct effect on execution risk. And that's one of the reasons that the PMI now uses the term power skills instead of soft skills, because they really are the power skills that we need to execute the project. And so many project risks emerge or grow because people misunderstand expectations, avoid difficult conversations, fail to share information, resist decisions, or allow conflict to escalate till it's toxic. Strong interpersonal skills help the project manager recognize these issues earlier and respond before they become larger project problems. For example, active listening helps the project manager understand stakeholder concerns before they become dissatisfaction. Emotional intelligence helps the project manager manage tension in a way that keeps the team focused. Influence helps gain cooperation when the project manager may not have direct authority over every person involved, which in my experience is pretty much the case on all projects these days. Clear communication reduces confusion and rework, and facilitation skills help the team reach decisions and resolve issues more efficiently. So for our course project, the interpersonal skills assessment should connect these skills directly to your project rather than simply just listing the traits. You need to explain which interpersonal skills matter most for your project, and how those skills will help control risks during execution. And the main takeaway is that interpersonal skills are practical project control tools. They help the project manager keep work moving, reduce misunderstandings, strengthen trust, and address problems before they damage performance. And so now that we've looked at interpersonal skills and how they relate to execution risk, we can look more broadly at how the project manager manages the team during active project work. Team management keeps the project work aligned, supported, accountable, and moving towards expected results. The project manager also has to manage the team environment in which those tasks are being performed. So team management includes clarifying roles, coordinating assignments, supporting team members, monitoring progress, addressing barriers, and helping the team stay accountable to the project's expectations. This doesn't mean micromanaging every action. It means creating enough structure and support so that the team members understand what they are responsible for and how their work connects to others and when issues need to be raised. And this is especially important during execution because small team issues can quickly become project performance issues. If roles are unclear, work may be duplicated or missed. If communication is weak, delays and rework can increase. If barriers are not addressed, team members may become frustrated or disengaged. If accountability is inconsistent, the project manager may not see problems until they've already affected the scope, schedule, quality, or stakeholder confidence. For the course project, think about how interpersonal skills and conflict management approach you would need to support team management. The goal is not just to say that the team will work together, but to explain how you as project manager will help keep the team aligned, supported, and able to perform the project work effectively. One of the most common team management challenges during execution is conflict. So next we'll take a look at how conflict as a normal project performance issue rather than something to avoid. Conflict should be managed as a performance issue, not avoided as a personal problem. Conflict is a normal part of project execution. Projects bring together people with different roles, different responsibilities, and different work styles, different expectations, different levels of authority. When those differences appear during active project work, the goal is not to pretend conflict doesn't exist. The goal is to manage it constructively before it affects project performance. I like to say that you want to keep the conflict at what I call productive conflict. People should value their views enough to want to defend them to a point where they can collaborate with other people, but not to a point that they become disruptive or personal or toxic. In many cases, though, conflict is not a personality issue. It may be a signal that something in the project needs attention, and that's where that productive conflict comes in. Priorities may be unclear, resources may be constrained, roles may overlap, stakeholders may disagree about expectations, or communication may not be reaching the right people at the right time. For this reason, the project manager should treat conflict as useful information. A conflict may reveal a risk, a planning gap, a communication weakness, a coordination problem, and when it's handled well, a conflict can lead to clarification, better decisions, stronger and more effective team understanding, and improved project execution overall. For your project assignment, the conflict management assessment should explain what types of conflict that could reasonably occur in your project and the tools and techniques that you'll use as project manager to address them. And this should be connected to project execution. Again, not just a generic statement about getting along with others. The main point is that conflict management is part of performing the project work. Managing conflicts helps protect the schedule, quality, communication, stakeholder confidence, and overall team performance. And this connects well with the executing process group, which includes the managed team and managed communications and managed stakeholder engagement as key execution processes. So now that we've established conflict as a normal execution issue, we can look at the specific tools and techniques that project managers use to manage it constructively. Effective conflict management uses structured communication, problem solving, negotiation, and escalation when needed. So once we recognize conflict as a normal part of execution, the next question is how the project manager should respond. Conflict management should not be random or purely emotional. It should use structured tools and techniques to help the team clarify the issue, focus on project outcomes, and move towards resolution. The first step is often structured communication. The project manager needs to help people explain what's happening and what they need, what they understand differently, and what the project impact might result if the issue remains unresolved. This helps separate facts from assumptions. Problem solving is also important. Instead of treating conflict only as a disagreement, the project manager should ask, what is the underlying project issue and what is causing the conflict? Is there a role problem, a resource constraint, an unclear requirement, or schedule pressure, or a stakeholder expectation that needs to be addressed? Then we can apply negotiation when people or stakeholders have competing needs to help solve this problem. So the project manager may need to help the team balance scope, schedule, quality resources, and expectation. And facilitation can also help by guiding conversation and making sure that all voices are heard and keeping the group focused on decisions rather than on applying blame. Escalation shouldn't be the first response, but it's sometimes necessary. If the conflict involves authority, resources, contractual issues, or decisions that are beyond the project manager's control, the issue may need to move to the sponsor or governance body or another decision authority. Conflict management assessment for the course project should identify the conflict tools and techniques that you would actually use in your project if you were executing it. And the goal is to show that you as the project manager have a practical approach for managing disagreement before it harms team performance, communication quality, or stakeholder confidence. This aligns again with the project executing process group's emphasis on managing team, managing communications, and managing stakeholder engagement. So after looking at conflict management, we can shift to another execution responsibility, and that is assuring that project work is being performed in a way that supports acceptable quality. Quality assurance helps ensure that the project is aligned or helps assure that the project work is being performed in ways that support acceptable outcomes. There's a little difference between quality assurance and quality control. They're related, but quality control is more of a tool that we would use. Quality assurance is kind of an overall activity. So that's how quality assurance helps ensure that project work is being performed in ways that support acceptable outcomes. After discussing the team leadership conflict that we just did, we can now shift to quality assurance. And during execution, quality assurance focuses on whether project work is being performed in a way that supports acceptable project outcomes or deliverables. This is important because quality is not something that should be checked only at the very end of the project. If the team wants the final delivery, if the team waits until the final delivery is complete to think about quality, defects, rework, and missed expectations or process problems may already be built into the project work. And then at the end of at delivery time, it's a little too late. Quality assurance helps the project manager and team look at how the work is being done and agreed standards, and the agreed standards are they being followed? Are the right reviews, checklists, inspections, or testing activities being used? Are team members applying the quality expectations identified in the project plan? Are issues being corrected early enough to protect the final deliverable? So the quality assurance asks those questions, and quality control is a part of the inspection and the work that we do to sort of manage and make sure that we're asking these questions and to validate these questions. For the course project assignment, the quality assurance assessment should explain the tools and techniques that would be applied to ensure quality on your project. It should include both the quality of the project, the product, the service or result, and the quality of the project management process itself, which is sometimes overlooked in project, is that we focus a lot on the deliverables and the value, but sometimes, really more often than not, the quality of how we're conducting ourselves as project managers and we're actually executing the project, that quality, the quality of planning. We're in execution now, so we can kind of see whether or not the planning was reasonable, and we want to look at that quality as well. So it's kind of a holistic view of that. So there's really two tracks of quality. There's quality of the processes themselves and quality of the product itself. And the main point is that quality assurance supports project execution by preventing problems, reducing rework, and helping ensure that the project work remains aligned with stakeholder expectations and project requirements. Now that we've looked at quality assurance, we need to distinguish between quality in the deliverable and quality in the way the project work is managed. Project quality includes both the result being created and the way the work is being managed. And when we think about quality, it's common to focus first on the final product, service, or result. And it's important, but it's only one part of the quality conversation, like as I was talking to earlier. Project quality has two connected dimensions. And the first is the deliverable quality. This asks whether the project output meets requirements, satisfies stakeholder expectations, and performs in the way that it's supposed to perform. And an example of this would be a training program should meet learning objectives. A software implementation should function as expected. A process improvement project should produce the intended operational benefit. The second dimension is the process quality. This asks whether the project work itself is being managed appropriately. Are the right communication practices being followed? Are risk and issues being tracked? Are reviews being conducted? Are changes being handled properly? Are team members using the agreed approach? These two dimensions are connected. Weak project management processes can create defects, rework, and confusion, missed expectations, and delays. Strong processes don't guarantee perfect deliverable, but they increase the likelihood that problems are identified early and corrected before they damage the final outcome. So for week 8, the quality assurance assessment, you should address both dimensions, and you should explain how they will assure quality in the project's output and how they assure quality in the way the project work is being performed and managed. So now we can shift to another execution responsibility, and that's distributing information during active project work. Information distribution keeps stakeholders informed, engaged, and able to support timely project decisions. During execution, information distribution becomes one of the project manager's most important responsibilities. I think I've read somewhere, or kind of the rule of thumb is, the heuristic is that project manager's job, 90% of the job is communication and distributing information. And so project work creates new information every week, and that information needs to reach the right people in a useful form. Stakeholders don't need every detail of every task, but they do need timely information that helps them understand progress, issues, risk, decisions, and deliverable status. If information is not distributed effectively, stakeholders may be surprised by problems. Team members may work on different assumptions and decisions may be delayed. The purpose of information distribution is not simply to send messages. It's to support coordination, transparency, decision-making, and stakeholder confidence. Good communication helps the project team stay aligned and helps stakeholders understand when support, input, or decisions are needed. And so for the course project assignment, the distribute information updates should explain how information will move during execution. You should identify what information will be shared, who needs it, how often it'll be shared, and what communication tools or channels will be needed. So you'll leverage the communications register, that the stakeholder register in the communications plan that we have. The main point is that information distribution is part of performing the project work, and it helps connect execution activity to stakeholder awareness and effective project decision making. So now we can look more specifically at why communication updates are important execution artifacts rather than just planning documents. Communication updates show how project information will move during execution, not just what's planned earlier. So earlier in the project lifecycle, we develop communication planning elements. During execution, those planning elements need to become active communication updates. Communication updates are execution artifacts because they show how the communication plan will be put into practice. They explain what information will be shared, who needs it, how often it will be shared, and what tools or channels will be used. This is important because project execution creates changing information. Stakeholders may need status updates, issue or risk visibility, decision requests, or deliverable progress updates. If these updates are not handled consistently, the project may experience confusion, delayed decisions, rework, or declining stakeholder confidence. For the course project assignment, you should not simply repeat an earlier communication plan, but you should show how that will support active project work in decision-making, risk awareness, and issue resolution, and stakeholder engagement. The key point is that communication, these planning artifacts that we have, we want to update them and convert the communication plan into an execution action and make the project information visible, useful, and timely while work is being performed. And so now that we've looked at major execution responsibilities, we can connect these ideas, as we've been doing, to the week 8 course project artifacts. So for week 8, the week 8 artifacts explain how project work will be led, communicated, supported, and quality assurance during execution. Course project deliverables this week are designed to help you explain how project work will be performed during execution. So at this point in the course project, we're not simply adding more documents to the plan, we're describing the management practices that will help the project manager guide active project work. The interpersonal skills assessment should explain the leadership, communication, influence, facilitation, and emotional intelligence skills that will be most important for your project. And the key is to connect those skills to execution risk, team coordination, and stakeholder confidence. The conflict management assessment should identify the likely sources of conflict and explain how the project manager would respond. And this should be practical and project specific, not a general statement about being respectful or cooperative. You want to do that, but you want to go beyond that. The quality assurance assessment should explain how you as the project manager would help ensure that both the deliverables and the project management processes meet expectations. We should think about reviews, checklists, standards, inspections, testing, and other assurance techniques that fit your project. And then finally, the distribution information update should explain how information will move during execution. You should identify what information needs to be shared, who needs it, how often it will be shared, and what tools or channels will be used. And so the expectation here is a really kind of a fully completed stakeholder engagement plan, and show how that you would implement that stakeholder engagement plan throughout your project. And taken together, all these artifacts will show you how you'll lead, communicate, support the team, and address conflict and assure quality while project work is being performed. So before we finish up, I want to summarize some major takeaways from this, and we'll focus, do a little connection towards week 9 if we have that. So the takeaways from this week: effective execution depends on leadership, coordination, quality communication, and conflict management. So as we close for this week, the key idea is that project execution requires active management of people, information, quality expectation, and project conditions, the project environment needed to turn the improved plan into results. Leadership matters because the project manager helps create the conditions for the team to perform. Team coordination matters because roles, assignments, resources, and accountability must remain clear during execution. Conflict management is important because disagreement and tension are normal in project work, and they should be addressed constructively before they affect team performance. Quality assurance matters because quality should be built into the work as it's being performed, not inspected only at the end. Information distribution matters because stakeholders need timely, useful information to understand progress, issues, risk, decisions, and deliverable status. In relation to the course project, you should use these ideas to strengthen your week 8 artifacts. And the goal is not to write generic descriptions. The goal is to explain how these execution practices will apply to your specific project that you've been developing throughout the course. And then, but we're not looking for an enterprise level thing. It just needs to be focused to the context. And so now that we've summarized all these, let's take a look ahead to week 9. The next step in the project lifecycle is managing performance and managing change. So in week 9, we're going to shift from performing project work to managing project performance and managing change. Essentially, it's the monitor and control part of the project lifecycle. And as we look ahead, the course project moves to that step of the project lifecycle. So this week we focused on performing project work and leading the team and managing conflict and assuring quality and distributing information. Next week, we're going to shift from that to evaluating how the work is progressing. And that means looking more closely at the project performance, the metrics, the change management, and the information needed to make controlled decisions. And this transition is important because project execution naturally produces new information. As the work is being performed, the project manager begins to see whether the project is meeting expectations, where variances may be emerging, whether quality is being maintained, and whether changes are needed. And so for the course project, week 9 will build on the execution artifacts from this week. We'll begin thinking about how project performance will be measured and how changes will be documented, reviewed, and managed. And so with that in mind, we can close out today by reinforcing the connection between execution, discipline, and project performance. As we finish up, this is the end. Remember that project execution is where the project plan becomes active. That project performance depends on how the project manager and the team apply the plan during the real project. And this week's artifacts should describe how you will lead the team, manage conflict, assure quality, and distribute information during project execution. And also, I want to thank you for being here. I know there's lots of other things you could be doing, and it shows me that you're engaged and committed to your education and professional development, which is very awesome. And we'll pick up next week and we'll build on execution by looking at performance management and change management.